Welcome to this explainer. Look, today we're going to shatter a massive illusion. The idea that just building a taller digital wall is enough to keep your business safe. We're going to explore why focusing purely on traditional protection is, well, failing us, and why true cyber resilience, which is really the ability to take a punch and keep moving, is the only viable way to survive today. The old school mindset of just trying to keep the bad guys out, it isn't just outdated anymore, it's actively dangerous.
Okay, let's just dive right into the deep end here. 83%. Frontier AI models now boast an 83% first attempt success rate at finding and exploiting system vulnerabilities. Just let that sink in for a second. In the past, this success rate was near zero. The cost of discovering a vulnerability has entirely collapsed, which means the barrier to entry for attackers is basically zero. The gap between finding a weakness in your system and ruthlessly exploiting it has shrunk from weeks down to literally hours.
And because of that AI supercharge, we are now facing an 89% year-over-year increase in AI-enabled cyber attacks. The threat landscape isn't just growing, guys, it's mutating. And a mutating landscape makes rigid, simple protection strategies completely obsolete. Cyber disruption is no longer this rare worst-case scenario. It's a recurring operational reality that you absolutely have to be prepared to navigate.
What makes this even scarier is the speed. 29 minutes is now the average breakout time for attackers to spread beyond their initial entry point. In less than a half hour, honestly, before most IT teams have even finished pouring their morning coffee, an attacker can move laterally throughout your systems. Because our cloud and platform ecosystems are so deeply interconnected today, it's nearly impossible to isolate a disruption once they're inside.
Now, here is where things get genuinely wild. Despite these accelerating threats, there's a dangerous perception gap happening at the very top of organizations. A staggering 81% of executives confidently assume that if a serious breach happens, their critical IT downtime will be 10 days or less. But the harsh reality? Actual recovery averages 3 to 6 months. That massive disconnect isn't just an IT headache, that is an existential threat to the survival of the company.
And this gap isn't just a slight misunderstanding. It represents a massive structural misalignment between the C-suite and security teams about what actually keeps the business alive. Get this. CEOs are 136% more likely than their chief information security officers to believe that simply meeting regulatory compliance ensures cyber resilience. The CEO often thinks compliance acts as this protective shield, while the CISO knows it's largely just paperwork. They think they're on the same page, but they're acting on totally incompatible assumptions.
So we need to make a major pivot, and it starts with defining our terms. What is protection, really? Protection is a set of security measures designed to lower the probability of a cyber disruption. It merely tries to stop the punch from landing. But it is entirely a numbers game, a game that, as we just saw with that overwhelming AI data, you are eventually going to lose. The punch will land.
Contrast that traditional approach with cyber resilience. This is the gold standard. Resilience is engineering your business to take that hit to the jaw, absorb the massive shock, and keep running under degraded conditions. Meaning the lights stay on, customers are served, and revenue keeps flowing, even while your IT team is fighting a 5-alarm fire in the background. It's a fundamental mindset shift from prevent the attack to survive the breach. Because of this fundamental confusion between protection and resilience, we're seeing 6 really dangerous myths blinding organizations right now. Let's tackle them one by one. Myth number 1, the illusion that compliance equals safety. We hear this all the time, right? We're compliant, so we're protected. It sounds fantastic and reassuring in a board meeting, doesn't it? But here's the truth. Compliance just means you successfully follow the rules on paper. Yet, only 35% of organizations are actually testing their resilience through real, practical recovery exercises. A binder full of checked boxes and paper audits is not going to restore your servers during a 2 a.m. ransomware attack. You have to prove your resilience by doing the hard work.
Moving on to myth 2, which provides this totally false sense of security. We're protected, so if something happens, we can easily recover. Actually, scratch that. Protection and recovery are entirely different engineering challenges. Protection reduces the likelihood of a failure, sure, but it absolutely does not mean the business has the capability to keep running when the inevitable strikes.
Alarmingly, only 11% of leaders strongly agree that their legacy predict and control security models are failing. That incredibly low number is terrifying. It means 89% of leaders are utterly unprepared to take a digital punch. It blinds them to the pressing need to design for survival, which requires explicitly assuming that your frontline defensive controls are going to fail.
Myth 3 pushes the blame outward. It is so tempting to sign an ironclad contract with a vendor and think you've outsourced your risk. The mindset of third parties are responsible for securing themselves assumes that external partners will just magically save your operations if things go south. But consider that 61% of organizations depend heavily on those external partners to sustain critical operations. If your vital vendor's system goes down, guess who your customers are going to blame? You, not the vendor. You cannot contract away shared operational outcomes. True survival means extending resilience across your entire value chain.
Okay, myth 4. This one confuses an IT cleanup crew with true operational continuity. People will confidently say, well, we have an incident response team, so we're resilient. Take a moment to really let the flaw in that logic sink in.
Incident response puts out the immediate fire. It manages the event and cleans up the mess. Resilience ensures the factory keeps producing goods while that fire is burning. Currently, a mere 40% of organizations actually have predefined and tested recovery paths for their critical systems. You have to engineer the ability to absorb the shock, not just react to it afterward.
On to myth 5, and this one is an incredibly risky, financially fatal trap. Cyber insurance will cover the impact. It's so tempting for a board to think a quick check from an insurer will just magically fix everything when a crisis hits.
But you know what insurance doesn't cover? The actual total disruption costs can exceed those insurance payouts by a factor of 10. Insurance might cut you a check for some financial loss, but it won't buy back your customer's trust. It won't repair the catastrophic headlines, and it definitely can't restore a market position lost during months of downtime. Build continuity. Don't just ensure fragility. Finally, myth 6, the classic passing of the buck. Cyber resilience is the security team's problem. It is profoundly unfair and completely unrealistic to dump the survival of the entire business squarely onto the IT department.
A digital disruption impacts everything. Your decision rights, employee incentives, third-party logistics, the whole shebang. Yet only 43% of companies correctly govern resilience as a shared enterprise responsibility. Shared responsibility means human resources, legal, operations, and the CEO all need a rigorous playbook for when systems go dark, not just the security guys.
So, if the old walls are crumbling and the myths are busted, what's the new playbook? Leadership absolutely must align on the minimum operations needed to survive. Your strategy has to be built around 3 things: stabilizing what you cannot afford to lose, sustaining those core elements through the crisis, and recovering with absolute confidence into a secure environment.
Here is your actual blueprint for cyber survival. First, identify your vital functions and map out their dependencies. Second, and this is a game changer, predefine your recovery decisions. Make these choices before a disruption, not during the chaotic fog of an attack. Third, build a hostile-ready recovery environment. Fourth, automate the reconstitution of your systems to shrink that downtime from months to hours. And fifth, test real-world scenarios continuously as your business evolves.
And why does this matter beyond just avoiding a disaster? Because organizations that embrace this shift away from mere protection don't just survive, they become leaner and faster. They see a massive payoff in optimized spending, stopping the waste of money on useless tools. They make smarter investments based on what actually keeps the business running, and they see lower compliance costs. Resilience is a serious competitive advantage.
I'm going to leave you with this one provocative thought to chew on. When your digital walls are finally breached, and the data absolutely guarantees that they will be, is your organization truly engineered to take the punch and keep moving? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Take a long, hard look at your actual resilience strategy, and I'll see you next time.